all the way back to the very beginning. And we are thankful and blessed that he has favored us and raised up leaders from among us for us to tell our story for the benefit of humanity, for the dignity of the human race. Our parents, ancestors, all the way back to our father Adam, held on to the dynamic spirit that God used to generate everything. And because of their sacrifices, we the answer to their prayers. Those of us who was fortunate enough to come in and serve under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, it was a blessing, a real blessing. And when the Imam come in, he said he was born for the mission. Well, those of us who came in and supported, we had been sent deliberately to support this mission. It's our responsibility. We have to tell our story. We've been blessed now with one in our midst that expands the conversation ways that we can dialect with any human being on earth if they speak normal speech. Because of lunatics, because of the science, because of the Holy Quran, the science of the language of the Holy Quran can be explained through lunatics. For whatever language a human being speaks, it can only come from one of 7 places. And we've been blessed to carry that message. There's no reason for us not to support his community. Our ancestors would be disgraceful of us, shame us, if we let them down. We're not preparing the way for our children. We see what this world is about. There ain't no way in the world you want your children to assimilate into this world got out here with what we call Western civilization. Imam Bilal is a blessing in our midst for the benefit of humanity. And we right here, drinking up and chewing what you have and passing it on as best we can. But they got others among us. They know the same thing. They recognize it. If it was real in the first expression, then they shouldn't have no problem making the connection. The first one I heard say that about Becca was in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's somewhere I recall reading in the lesson where Abraham, the Kaaba was in Becca. Becca. But anyhow, our lives manifesting everything. We've been hoodwinked. We've been fooled. We've been tricked. And we know it. If we don't know it, it's our fault because the information is clear today. If we're scared, then we're unworthy. You're going to swallow your spit. You're going to continue to swallow your spit. You ain't got nothing to be fearful of. God is on our side. This is our day. This is the manifestation of the defects, all defects. It is a favor bestowed on us. Lunatics is in the world now. But now, the human story got to be told from the suffering that we've done, or we came through, because ain't nobody else that has been reduced that low. Ain't nobody else got the sensitivity and the compassion enough to reach down in the muck and the mud and get another human being who's been reduced as low as us, if we don't reduce them. Only us can teach and raise one another. That's why God raised up a leader from living people. They're familiar with the circumstances that force them to think the way they think in order to survive so they can live. And Imam Bilal made this crystal clear in his explanation. With his research, with his faith, with his determination, with his courage, it's our fault. We owe it to man. We owe it to our children. We owe it to ourselves. We know this world full of crap, man. Ain't no way. If you've been around here all this while, you serve under the but like this language ain't no stranger to you. If you was a soldier in Elijah's on it, this language it resonates with your spirit. It resonates with your understanding too. We got to tell our story in detail. Don't sanitize it, in detail. And the whole world will get better. The whole humanity will get better once we publicize our story. Every detail. Every detail. Because the rest of the world messed up too. They took advantage of the situation that was dropped on us. And we make ourselves look like some damn fools. We're going to run out there and let somebody else take our opportunity to go to heaven Choose the first door open. We ain't got to wait till one door. The first door open, we just go straight on with to rock the move the key. Straight on in the first door. And teach us the religion. Don't know nothing about us. Yeah, it's our fault. But we blessed, we can do it. Get lunatics in here. Support Imam. Support the mission. Brother Imam don't need no help. We're going to take care of him. Support the mission. Support the mission. That's what we need to do. It's a must for ourselves, for our children, for the benefit of humanity, for the dignity of humanity. Children get unborn. Satan ain't going to stop being deceitful. No, he ain't going to stop. When we rise up, he already told us that when we rise, the whole world will rise because the whole world standing on our backs. I know you're doing all right. You're doing all right. You don't want to rock the boat or whatnot, but you're a fool. You're a coward, fool. Yeah, that's what you is, a damn fool. Doing all right, you're a coward. You know, sold out your children, your grandchildren, get unborn because you don't want to be man or woman enough, goddamn, to support this new mission. Not no new mission. It's the same mission, but the light is brighter and it's been elevated. Everything. The end dealing just now. We're dealing now with the whole of humanity. And it's a blessing. A favor has been bestowed upon us. It's up to us to take advantage of it and go to work and make this vision a reality. We can't wish upon it. We got to work and make it happen. We got to support it. We got to build. But Elijah Muhammad told us that. We done had some great leaders who came before us. Marcus Garvey, George G. Jackson, all of them great men. Booker T, all of them, do for self, and now we satisfied. They done dumbed our children down. The children going crazy. We need new children. It's hard to protect them because Satan saturated the whole world with crap. I mean, it saturated the whole goddamn. Everybody want to do like America, and with her military might and her money, goddamn, she has influenced the whole world with crap deception. And we're going to leave that to our children. We got an opportunity to reestablish, to reconnect. Imam bringing us the teaching now straight from Mother Nature. And you can't deny it. Ain't no dogma seen it, no gray spots. It's crystal clear. God support us. God protects us. God advances us. And we're going to be successful. But we need your help. Whether it happens in our lifetime or not, it's got to happen. It's the same mission. It's the same platform. It's the same spirit. It's the same spirit. It's our responsibility to do what we can, do the best we can, as long as we got life in our body, right, and pass the torch on.
Indeed.
Yes, sir. But if we don't establish nothing for our children, how can we pull them in to help us continue building for the future? We got to do it. You know, we ought to be in. Well, the people come here looking for us. I've been all over this country. Everywhere you find 25 of us that got immigrant got his business. He got all the vice, all the liquor. The woman got a dress from head to feet, the dress dragging the ground and got a mask on. And they reach up on the counter, got on and get you half a pint of barricade rum with the twinkle of an eye, put in the bag and tell you thank you. And then she's supposed to be a Muslim, the daughter of a Muslim, husband, but all the business, take all our money out of the community. Then the children got the dope. And we say, oh, well, that's favorite. They got the real Muslim. No, they've been deceived. No, we the real Muslims. If you come join and support this mission, you'll be for real too, or if you found out to be a fake and phony. No, it's about work, it's about building. Individually and for the collective whole.
All right.
Humanity, and we got what we need. I love Brother Imam. God knowing the man got courage. Everybody ain't got to know what he said.
We love you too, man.
Take courage. They ain't got the nerve to say what you say. They might know what you know. I doubt that. But they ain't got the nerve to say what you say. You don't have the spirit to put it in the right tone where it can be resonated with another spirit, with the collective spirit. No, you God to and you on all frequencies. Yeah. Especially when you sincerely put his message forward. But that's our responsibility. Those of us who did under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Dr. We can't forget all that was to get us to where we are now. All of it was to get all mom and them done, all dad and them done. They never stopped praying that their children would see a better day. That's why we're here. See, the master would have got rid of him if he'd have found any kind of negative influence. What he was doing, he wanted that kind of mind amongst his niggas, amongst his slaves. No, everybody submitted. They heard and they obeyed. Willingly or unwilling, whether it was against their will or what, they done it. But they never stopped praying that their children would see a better day. And we're their children. Those of us who've been blessed to see it, we're obligated. And you can't take this to the grave with you. You got to share. You're robbing, you're shortchanging your own children if you don't. Yeah. Anyhow, that's our responsibility. We don't need no more ideas, no more sooner. They done put the whole world to sleep with that BS. And that's what it is. It sounds good and it has its good purpose. But don't associate it with the prophet. Whoever thought of it or why they couldn't do it. But it was done to deliberately weaken the Islam. Yeah, and they got people among us got doing, if you don't put your dress on, some sandals and some else, and throw away your toothbrush and thing, they'll say you ain't no real Muslim. Yeah, there's something wrong with you, because you got to be Bob Kappa on the field of the Kufi. You ain't no real Muslim. But that's the self-hatred, the after effect of self-denial, slavery. Yeah. But the fact of it is, God always blames up the people who need the help. He ends up leading from among them. And you look back in our history, we done had some giants. Some giants. Denmark, these are all of them. They sacrificed everything. On the plantation, doing slavery, they rebelled, they put their life on the line. They know they was going to get killed. Yeah, but they put their life, why? So that their children would see a better day. Salam alaikum. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Alaikum salam. And that was our instructor, Hassan Abdullah. Thank Allah for him. And just to get a kind of feel for who's with us tonight, I'm going to begin by asking you to introduce yourselves and where you're calling from. And we're going to try not to step on anybody's toes while we're introducing ourselves, but just open up your phone, *6 your phone, and as soon as you introduce yourself, go back to mute.
Instructor Michael Hamid, Jacksonville, Florida.
Assalamu alaikum. Instructor Habib Abdul Shaheen, Camden, New Jersey.
Instructor Mikel, Dallas.
Assalamu alaikum. Tahida Alibba, Dallas, Texas.
Beautiful.
Assalamu alaikum. Nasheed Alukda, Dallas, Texas.
Excellent.
Assalamu alaikum. Salia Amatullah, New York City.
Indeed. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Let's take it a touchdown.
Camila Abdul Hakeem, Dallas, Texas.
A lot of Texas in the house. That's great. Just keep it coming.
Assalamu alaikum. Ramzan Amin, Columbia, South Carolina.
All right.
Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullah.
From Atlantic City.
Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullah. Kenya Shakur from Kansas City, Missouri.
Excellent. I didn't catch the female's voice prior to you, Kenya. Who was that? There was a female before you?
Sister Dina Abdul Rahim from Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to stop there, and I'll give enough time at the end of what I'm saying for anyone who has not introduced themselves but would like to. We'll do that at the end of the call. So we begin officially with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, with Allah's signature, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The definitive praise is owned by Allah, who is the source creator of all. We thank Allah in the words Alhamdulillah, but the word Alhamd, although it is descriptive of a particular way of thinking regarding praiseworthiness and thanksgiving, Allah gives it to us in the form of a noun with a definite article attached. Praise is not necessarily a thing as we know things to be, but Allah has given us this word for praise, for the definitive praise, in a way that suggests that it is actually a noun that has been given a particular definition with the definite article al being attached to it. Alhamd. Alhamdulillah. Lillah means owned by Allah. Lillah means belonging to Allah as property. So alhamd is actually the property of Allah. We could also translate it that way if we chose to do so. But why is he giving it to us as a noun? Because nouns in the Quran are to be seen as permanent fixtures. Verbs are action words, and all actions have a beginning and an end. Whether it's going to sleep at night, you intend to wake up the next morning. That's an action. Eating your breakfast, you begin, but you intend to conclude that breakfast and go on to some other actions. So all of those actions are temporary, whereas the verbs and their temporariness is to be contrasted with the nouns and their permanent fixtures. So if we talk about the sun as Shams, the moon al-Qamar, we continue to add the definite article al to the beginnings of those words because it's the definite article that's giving it its permanence. So although hamd is not a noun properly speaking, Allah gives it noun status because the hamd that he is describing, which he owns, is to be permanently fixed into the psyches of the reader. There's no dissipation of Allah's hamd, that concept. We don't wake up in the morning and say that he deserves the praise, and then towards the afternoon, if we didn't get what we asked him for, we start to say that he doesn't deserve all the praise or that much praise, you know. You know how humans do. But alhamd means the definitive, recognizable, identifiable praise belongs to Allah. And that praise is unlike any praise that you're going to give to anything or anybody else. No one else deserves it. And even if you thought they deserved it, the construction of that sentence says that Allah owns it. So you got to take that up with the owner if you think you deserve the praise, or if you think your leader deserves the praise, or if you think your government deserves the praise, or you're trying to get us to behave in a way that suggests that you are our owners. No, our owner is Allah, and he is the one deserving of the ultimate praise. I want to begin with a comment from Imam Warithuddin Muhammad. Imam W.D. Muhammad stated that he was going to begin speaking to African Americans, but through their subconscious minds, because speaking to their conscious minds was not working. Now, as soon as I heard that quote from Imam W.D. Muhammad, I immediately went deeper into the study of what the subconscious and the conscious mind actually represent. So bear with me if you've heard this before, but it bears repeating for those who may not have heard it. And that is that the human being is typified or is to be characterized as human based on the fact that we have been given a thinking brain created for us by our source creator, Allah. The human being typically has what is called a triune brain. Now, this is a hypothesis for sure, but it seems to have been bearing out as a useful reference ever since it was introduced in 1967 by neurologist Paul McLean. So if you want to go into the details of what he means by the triune brain, the three-part brain, simply Google his name, Paul, last name MC, capital Clean, McLean, where he postulates that the human being has a three-part brain that has developed through evolutionary history, beginning with the bottom part of the brain that is connected directly to the central nervous system by way of the spine. So there's a lower part of the brain that is called R-complex, also known as the reptilian brain. And the reptilian brain is the part of the brain connected to the lower stem that connects to the spine, which operates your nervous system. Your nervous system is actually being controlled by your reptile brain. And what does that mean? That means that because the reptile brain is the part of the brain that controls our instinctive behaviors, it means that our nervous system itself becomes a product of our instinctive behaviors. What do we mean by instinctive? What's meant by instinctive are all of those things that are clocked into your genetics that Allah put there as information that is designed to save your life, and to save your life in a way that might eventually advance that life up to higher and more noble aspirations. But you have to have the instincts to live first. You have to want to eat properly and eat the right things. You have to want to drink and satiate your thirst. You have to want to be warm, or in an environment at least that is representative of the least amount of friction and danger possible. All of that is being regulated by the instinctive brain. Dr. McLean says that sitting above the R-complex brain is what's called the mammalian brain. Science also calls it the limbic brain, and it is where emotions and memory are regulated. So it's called the emotional brain. It's called the mammalian brain because all mammals have this brain. Reptiles do not have a mammalian brain. Reptiles are not ruled by emotions and memory. What a reptile did yesterday is not remembered by that reptile today. What a reptile did an hour ago, it won't remember that it did that thing, and it will not respond to the repercussions of negative behaviors conducted by itself. There are cases where boa constrictors or other actually flesh-eating snakes have been the pets of some people who, for whatever reason, decided to have these man-eater snakes in their homes. And they got loose from their cages, and in one case, I remember, one of these snakes swallowed an infant whole. Now, do you think when they got to that snake and was able to loose that baby, if possible, from the jaws and from the digestive tract of that snake, of course the baby was killed. But do you think spanking the snake on the head or, whatever is going to, if you had let that snake live and you had put a different infant in front of that snake 15 minutes after or 2 hours after, or whenever that snake became hungry again, do you think that snake is going to remember that you tapped him on the snout because he swallowed your last child? No. That snake will conduct exactly that same behavior again and again and again and feel no way about it, because a snake doesn't have emotions like we know emotions. A snake doesn't have a memory bank to remember what it did that was right or wrong. It has no sense of morals. It has no sense of ethical behavior. And everything I'm telling you is also clocked into the reptilian brain that is sitting in your head right now, that's connected to your spine, called R-complex. But sitting right above that is that mammalian brain that does have emotions and memory clocked into it. So it's able to regulate even those impulses or those instinctive drives that are driving you to do certain things in the name of staying alive, but your emotions are telling you that it doesn't feel right to snatch that old lady's pocketbook. Yeah, you might not have that much food at home, and mama's worried about being able to feed you dinner over the next few nights, and you're out there looking for some scramble, looking for something to do, looking for something to sell or whatever. And here's this vulnerable elder, and your instincts say she's got a pocketbook, and she's probably on retirement. She's got some money in the pocketbook. That's your instinctive brain telling you that, because it has no morals. It's like the snake. But it takes a part of the brain, that mammalian brain, that does register emotions, how to feel about a thing, and also remembers, because it has a vivid memory bank that says, no, the last person I heard about who stole a pocketbook ended up in the pokey, or ended up being beat up by, somebody who interceded, or at the police department, bad things happen to, people in the ghetto who steal purses and pocketbooks from old people, especially if they have to knock the person down or hurt the person or punch at the person. No, I'm not going to do that. See, that's your mammalian brain doing that. And it supersedes the authority that God has placed in our complex or reptilian brain. So when you find people who don't care anymore about hurting other people, when you find people who don't care about how much misery they bring into the lives of people, and they continue to live and eat their burger right after shooting somebody in the face or blowing out the back of somebody's head. You've seen it in these gangster movies. You may have seen it in real life. When you find people who seem to have no conscience about these things, it is because their human framework has been reduced to reptilian behavior and instinctive drives. And they cannot communicate on the level of true emotions, and it doesn't bother them to even attempt to remember the consequences of bad behavior or evil behavior. They have no clue what you're talking about. They'll laugh in your face, and all the time they want to take your place, and they are backstabbers, and they'll pull the blade out to 3 inches and call it progress after plunging it into you 6 inches, as Malcolm used to say. So you have to have an activated emotionality, is my point, if you're going to survive the extremism brought about by purely instinctive drives operating in you. Now, there's a third brain sitting above the mammalian brain that's called the neocortex, and the prefix neo means new. It's the same word. If you exchange the O in neo for the W in new, you'll see that it's the same word. So the cortex is that top layer of the brain crowning your skull that operates based on what are called the frontal lobes. There are 4 of them in total. And they are actually ruling and regulating as moral and rational legislators in the brain. They control what Imam Muhammad used to refer to very often as the moral and rational nature of the brain. What is meant by moral and rational? Moral is that process in the brain that seeks to determine the good and the bad, or the right and the wrong, or the pure and the impure. All of these contrasts are given to us in the scriptures, both Bible and the Quran. When the Quran speaks about the 2 roads or the 2 highways, it's speaking about this moral and rational process in the brain. Allah says that you're to take the path that is steep. People don't like to take that path that is steep. We like the easy path. But there are pathways in the brain that are operating on the moral and rational level that require that we take the steep path, the path that causes a little bit of strain, at least on the thigh muscles. The steeper the hill or the mountain, the more you're going to feel it in your thigh muscles. All of these things have meanings. So moral represents any situation that you run into that's going to challenge your emotionality to do something better, to be something better, to act in a way that is more indicative of dignity, honor, trust, even if at the end of the day you don't walk away with the prize that you were seeking or searching for. Someone else walks away with the prize, but you did the right thing. You didn't cheat your way to the prize. You did the moral thing. Anytime you see the letters M and R in any word, in any language, it represents activities taking place in the emotionality that are challenging the emotionality to do the right thing. Even though you feel a different way about it, that way that you're feeling is not considered to be right. And therefore, the urge in the intellect is to quell that emotionality to the point where you're able to walk across that turbulent water and arrive on dry land. When Christians in the Bible read about Jesus walking on water, this is what it's talking about. It's talking about the mastery that Jesus had over his turbulent emotionality. And he was able to balance himself upon his own turbulent emotionality. He was born as a product of that turbulence, in the fact that he was born from a woman named Maryam, or Mary. You see the MR in Maryam's name? Because she was also a product of turbulent emotionality. When you read about her story in both the Bible and the Quran, you're going to see a character being depicted as one who was very seriously emotionally challenged in the decisions that she had to make, from the birth of Jesus, not having a visible father present with her and being accused possibly of all kinds of sin and indiscretions. She had to deal with that, although she was a pure woman, according to both scriptures. But inside, she had to deal with the challenge of her own unstable emotionality. In the Quran, she pleads out to God, "Woe that I had been one just forgotten." When she was going through the pangs of childbirth, this is what she cried out. "Oh, if I had just been one who had just been," meaning, I wish I had never been born to experience this moment. She wasn't only asking to be excused from that pain, she was asking to be excused from that life. You don't understand how deep the Quran goes to give us modern day readers insights into the most excellent practices related to psychology and sociology and all of these other ologies. The Quran is giving us deep insight into these sciences. Allah is Rabbil Alameen. He's the evolver of all systems of science, all systems of deep knowledge. I once heard Imam W.D. Muhammad say that Maryam represents genetic memory. And that's the first time that my mind showed me that the word memory in English, memory, and the way Maryam is transliterated into English as Maryam, that they're basically the same letters and the same word. Maryam, memory. But he called Maryam genetic memory, meaning that there's a memory that goes way back beyond your personal memory. You wake up, you do things, you remember you did them, and next week you might have forgotten that you said something or did something. But there's a genetic memory that you can't erase because it is operating through the genetic bank. Keep in mind what we said in the beginning of this discourse, that Imam Muhammad said he was going to be speaking to the genes, to the subconscious of African Americans, because speaking to our conscious mind, he said, was not working. So Imam Warathuddin Muhammad instituted a particular strategy for reaching African Americans, not through what he was saying to them consciously, but what he was implanting into their genetic bank, into their genetic memory banks as language. And he was one of the most astute people capable of doing so. Most people have no clue how to do that, and then a greater number have no idea that you can do that. Words make people, so said Imam Din Muhammad. So I'm going to share a little bit of that science with you tonight. We're not going to be that long, but we're going to be that strong. So you have the reptilian brain on the bottom. Above that, you have the mammalian brain controlling your memory and emotional mind. And above the emotional mind, you have the neocortex controlling your moral and rational decision making. So once you decide that something is morally good, morally correct, morally sound, then the brain has the capacity to take that moral decision and implement it rationally so that you can see it in the world. So the moral and rational brain are married in a sense. The moral side is the feminine side, and the rational side is the masculine side. Now, people think that because Dr. Paul MacLean postulated that there are 3 parts to the brain, that there are only 3 parts to the brain. And a particular stickler related to European science and investigation on the science level is that they don't like to go beyond the material. They don't like to go into areas of thought where spiritual ideas and activities regulate and register. Sitting square in the middle of the human brain is something called the pineal organ or the pineal gland. And the pineal gland is a small pea-shaped object in the brain that registers something above and beyond moral and rational thinking. Moral and rational thinking are what constitute what science calls the intellect. And intellect simply means the ability to choose between 2 things or more. The word intellect as a verb means internal election. Elect, internal election, the things that you are electing to do based on how you see them morally and how you believe you can implement them rationally. So that would make the intellect the highest post that the brain can achieve as an authority figure, but that's not true. If you leave the intellect to be the final arbiter and decision maker in the brain, you're going to have a world very much like the one we have, where people think that the intellect is chief and supreme. The intellect is not the supreme ruler in the human head. The intellect is not the supreme or chief ruler in the human brain. The pineal gland occupies that post because the pineal gland takes you into what I call supra-intuitive abilities. Supra just means above and beyond. Intuitive, meaning your baseline intuition that actually begins as a coinciding activity with your instinctive drives. Alongside your instinctive drives, you also have an intuitive awareness of things. It doesn't necessarily manifest as knowledge in the way that we speak about knowledge, but it manifests as awareness, meaning that you know they're there, but you don't necessarily know the proper place for those things. When a baby is born, it's aware that there's this person or this figure or this object in front of it that it will later come into the knowledge of as mother or brother or sister or father or objects in the house and that kind of thing. But it sees these things, it's registering them with its eyes or hearing these things with its ears, but it is only aware, it's not knowing what these things are cognitively. So we are all born into an arena of awareness. awareness, awareness. But we have to grow into knowingness, into knowledge, knowledge. Awareness is not the same as knowledge. Awareness in your human system is that capacity created by Allah that connects you and connects all of the rest of us with a greater and more universal awareness that we call cosmic awareness. Cosmic awareness is born into and out of that system that we see as the universe, the cosmos, the planetary alignments and configurations, and the lights that we see up there in the form of stars and moon and sun and the air and the atmosphere and all of these layers of atmosphere, or layers of spheres, I should say, that are above our heads. All of that is representative of what we're calling awareness. These planetary bodies, these stars, the sun, the moon, we can't say that they are knowledgeable bodies, but we can say that they have a particular level of awareness for them to do what it is they do on a daily basis without stint, without messing up on the most part. They stick to their duties, irrespective of other things that attempt to get in their way. The clouds attempt to get in the way of the sun that was designed to shine, but the sun still does its job behind or above the clouds, because the sun is aware of its duty to Allah as a created object in the universe. So an infant is born aware. Let's give you further proof. When the sperm leaves the male organ and enters into the female organ and approaches the ovum and inserts itself within the female's ovum and begins to grow, all of those activities, one by one, consecutively, back to back, are being regulated by cosmic awareness. How do they know to do what it is they do with the regularity that they do those things with? How does it know to stay in a particular position for a particular length of time and then evolve into the next level of that development, going from embryo to fetus? How does it know? It doesn't know that as a thinking brain. The brain is not even developed. So what's sending it those signals? What is regulating the impulses within that living form to begin unfolding and unpacking its potential like that? It's what Allah has clocked into that creature as what we are now calling its awareness. Now I'm going to show you a very important consonantal connection in the word aware and in the Quranic term ruh. When we say aware, we can see the consonants W-R in aware. When we say ruh, we can see the consonants R-H. The word W is also a guttural. The word R is a liquid. The letter H is a guttural, meaning from the back of the throat. The pronunciation comes from the back of the throat. When you say wah, wah, comes from the back of the throat. When you say ha, ha, and you're pronouncing it correctly as it was intended to be pronounced, you're going to find that the wah is also from the back of the throat as a thrust, as well as the H sound. And therefore, W, R, and RH are going to be related. Doesn't matter whether it's forwards or backwards. If they occupy the same letters, then they're going to have a related sound and a related meaning. So aware and ruh are saying essentially the same things. It's actually the ruh, once it is deposited into the embryo, it is that ruh that causes that developing life form to become aware. What does that mean? It is that effort on the part of the ruh to activate its connection with the cosmos. It is then a cosmic communicator once the ruh has been instituted. And when that baby is born and that baby begins to observe its environment, that is not a knowledgeable creature that was born. That is an aware creature that has been born. And the happiness that you see exuding from its face and its smile and its gums and all of that, and it's reaching out to you, all of that happiness is preceded by an awareness upon the first few days of that baby's life, before it learns that it has an arm or a hand to grasp mother's finger with, or who that is in front of it, or who's the feeding source. Before it comes into that knowledge, the little smile it has after it's all cleaned up after being born, and it opens its eyes and becomes adjusted to the light of our environment and that kind of thing, that's an awareness. That's not knowledge. It has to grow in knowledge. What causes the infant to grow in knowledge? It is the activation of the intellect, that moral and rational property that we spoke about earlier. But the infant has to see things done repetitively before it can attach a judgment to what is good for it, what is bad for it, what it should stay away from, and what it should cling to. You see how furious an infant can be when it's hungry and the mother's trying to put that nipple in its mouth and it's fighting its mother because it's just aware. It's not knowledgeable. If it were knowledgeable, it would see the breast, see the nipple, and that would be the end of the crying story. But it learns to do that later once it begins to grow in knowledge. That means that the intellect is beginning to develop. I hope y'all are following me. It's heavily scientific, but it is also common sense if you think about it. Take your mind off of the 55-inch television and put it on what Instructor Bilal is saying to you right now. This, what I'm giving you tonight, is your future. All those who refuse to be a part of this illumination, this great day of illumination, will by necessity participate in the great illumination spoken of by Imam W.D. Muhammad. Those are serious words. So it's going to be your choice, essentially. But if you're choosing the great illumination, you have to get your eyes ready for that level of light. That light is called a nur. Your eyes have been acclimated by Satan to only accept nar, fire. Allah's wisdom in his Quran and the gifts of that enlightenment are designed to bring you into a supra-intuitive insight called nur. Nur upon nur, that's supra-intuition. Regular nur, that's regular enlightenment. Nur upon nur, that's spoken of in the Quran, that's supra-intuitive capabilities. Nar is simply the knowledge that you gain based on 5 sense participation in this world. And humans, on the most part, are responsible for the kindling of that fire called the nar. And Allah tells you that in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, that there was a man who kindled a fire. So how does that fire become hell in other parts of the Quran? It's not speaking to hellfire as you think about hellfire. It's speaking to the hellish conditions that are created based on human imagination and opinions about things. Most of what we're following in science right now are opinions. They call them theories. Most of what we're following in our relationships, if we're not getting our guidance from the book of Allah, the book of the source creator who knows all, and we're just following what some scientist or some psychologist or somebody in history had to say about relationships, Sigmund the Fraud or whoever, we're following somebody else's opinions about how this thing should be done or regulated. Right now, in this whole COVID mess, we're following the opinions of people, doctor this one and nurse that one and president the other one. And we're thinking that that's the absolute truth, as though God delivered those people and those messages to us. And in reality, we're just watching what the Quran described to us as a man who kindled a fire. Well, instructor, it just says a man. But are you talking about just one person? No, you're not reading it correctly. Allah says a man kindled a fire, and when it lighted all around him, Allah took away their light. So he's using one individual as a symbol of groups of people. Said he took away their light, their nar, their opinions, their theories, and left them in utter darkness. The word is dhulumat. It actually means layers of different levels and kinds of darkness, not just one darkness. There's no such English word as darkness says, so they couldn't get it exact, but the zulumat means layers of darkness. He took away from them a singular light, because all of their opinions are actually emanating from a singular source. Do you know what that is? Lies, fabrications, guesswork, as it's called in other parts of the Quran. If you believe in Christianity as it's presented by the average Christian preacher, you're believing in at least three things. You're believing in what you say are the words of Jesus the Christ, but you're also believing in ancient Iranian religion called Zoroastrianism. And it tells you that very clearly in the New Testament of the Bible. The three wise men that came to report on Jesus' birth, where does it say they came from? If you can get past the these and the thous and all of that, and you read past your favorite emotionally laden parts of the Bible, you're going to find out that those three wise men were from Iran, the land of Zoroastrianism. And you're going to find out that Peter, as a word, is Petra, and Petra is from the land of the Greeks. And that's why the New Testament is given to you in the Greek language. And they call that the language of their scripture. But that wasn't the language of the one they're calling Jesus. So now you got a second contribution. You believe in the message of the church as they give it to you. Jesus died for your sins, was born of a virgin called Mary, and blah, blah, and all of the rest of that. So that's one source. Now they're tying you into a Greek source. And then I told you that it's also tied into aspects of Zoroastrianism. And it goes on and on and on from there, because it ties back also to some ancient Hindu concepts where their major figures lived almost exactly the same life as Jesus the Christ, from being born of a virgin to being crucified to death. But most Christians don't read other texts, so they're not aware of these inconsistencies in their logic that says Jesus is sole and unique. He's not. Then we move on to the Muslim sphere. And there are so many stolen ideas from other religions that they have meticulously placed within the core of Islamic thought. Although the average Muslim is believing that it's singular and unique and revealed by Allah in the way that they received it at the masjid when they took Shahadatain. And that's not true. It is also heavily laden with Zoroastrian influence. I'm not talking about the Quran per se. I'm talking about the way the Quran has been interpreted, so much so that Allah put in the mouth of Muhammad the Prophet within the Quran that my people have abandoned this Quran. Who do you think he was talking about? He said that when he was alive and among his people. That means that he saw that they had abandoned the Quran as he was presenting it in his lifetime, not 200 years after when the hadiths began to show up, but while he was telling this truth, establishing this truth amongst his people, there was an effort right there to unestablish what he was saying, to attribute it to some other phenomenon, to say that it was magic, to misplace and to displace its concerns, to take lightly what Allah had delivered as a heavy message, so says the Quran. Islamic scholars went further than that to also take elements of Judaism as it was being taught to them by those ancient rabbis, and also to take elements of ancient Christianity as it was established amongst the Romans and others. And they began to inculcate many of those ideas into the bodies of literature that they passed off as Islamic knowledge. The scholars were responsible for that. For what purpose, instructor? So that they might obtain the rule and continue to rule over the masses of ignorant people. They didn't want to wait for their turn. They wanted to take our turn. And once they got their turn, which was really our turn, they didn't want to let the turn go. Allah says in the Quran that he rotates his kingdom. So how come the Arabs have had it for 1400 years plus? Why are they the kings of the deen forever and ever? Amen. I don't understand that. Allah says he rotates his kingdom, and he says if you don't do the right thing, he'll take it from you and he'll give it to someone else who deserves it. And he said he will love them, they will love him, and they will not be like you. That's Allah speaking in the Quran. They will not be like you. And in another place, he put in there that the Arabs are the most contentious of kuffar, people who have buried the truth. And nifaq, hypocrisy. This is not me speaking now. This is Allah speaking about these people. Generally speaking, who knows them better than the one who created them? They say, no, brother, that's speaking to the Bedouin, the desert Arab. There's nothing in that ayat that says desert. It says el-Arab, el-Arab. That's the Arab. Oh, he's teaching racism. No, he's teaching reality. It's time for you to wake up. Because it's those same El-Arab people that have El-Arab you of the blessings of what the Quran came to bestow upon you. The Quran came as an effort to reestablish justice on planet Earth. Justice in terms of the utility of resources, justice in terms of the dissemination of adequate and accurate knowledge. And the people who have been entrusted with this deen for the past 1,000 years or more have robbed you of that intentionally. Not the average one, not the average citizen of Saudi or whoever you see Arabs as being, not that one. I'm talking about those who have been in positions of leadership for these hundreds of years, following the ways of their forefathers who were pagans. They enjoyed that pagan rule. Because the stones don't speak back. You remember that in the Bruce Lee movie? Big old tough guy was trying to show Bruce Lee how much he could punch and how hard he could punch, and he hit the bag or whatever in the thing. Yeah. And Bruce Lee said, bags don't hit back. Well, the Arabs had that same disposition. They said, well, we can communicate our will through these rocks and these stones. And just tell the people what the stone is saying. We'll be the intermediary that tells the people. Hubal announced today that you are to give us 75% of your resources. Hubal has announced today that you are to circumambulate the Kaaba. Did you know that that action was taking place before the Quran was revealed? And that their practice was to do that in the nude? These poor Arabs circumambulating the Kaaba in the nude. Tell you something else you don't know, that the word El-Arab is not a reference to any ethnicity. It's a reference to a particular mental, moral, and spiritual disposition that can be inherited by anybody who sees themselves in that or at that level of power. And I'm going to tell you something on top of that. I'm going to put some nur on top of that nur, that the language of Arabiya has nothing to do with that which you hear Arabs speaking. Arabiya is also a description of a particular level of language logic that is established through the understanding of language frequencies, or what's called frequency modulation. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from an ethnic group? No, it's coming from the fitrah. In other words, when Allah mentions El-Arabiya or Arabiyan Mubin as the language of communication, of revelation, it's not talking about Arabic that you've been sitting down putting hours into learning. It's not talking about that. It's talking about something that's so simple, so unique. But if you don't really study it with the level of intensity asked by you from Allah, you won't get it. Because Arabiya represents insight into the movement of created matter. Arabiya is what scientists are studying and gaining insight through the struggling of the intellect. See, that first letter in Arab is Ain. And Ain means I, E-Y-E, but it means the straining eye that produces moisture. Ask in Arab what it means. It means fountain for some of them. Because when the eyes are studying and they become intense and red and struggling for insight, struggling to know, struggling to remember, then the eyes turn watery. But Ain is also the struggling in the neck. Now, if somebody comes from behind you and begins choking you, Allah forbid, if you can't get that chokehold from around you, your eyes are also going to begin to water. Or if you're choking on a chicken bone, you may have seen that or experienced that. You get something in your throat. So there's a connection between the throat and the eye, and both of them respond to strain and struggle. The second consonant in Arabia is the Ra, the R, and R means evolution and movement. It means any movement that results in liftoff, like an airplane or like a car that goes from 0 to 100 in so many seconds in some cases. That's evolutionary movement. Doesn't mean the car is going to take off, but we call it that. We say, take off. Go ahead, car. Take off, man. Go get out of here. Go take off. Take off. But the airplane actually does reach heights above where it was on the tarmac. So, Ra, if you even feel where your tongue is in order to pronounce that letter, R, at the top palate, rolling at the top palate, R, R, it lets you know that it's something that elevates. So, Arab is speaking to the struggling intellect that produces movement and evolution for what? Whatever that B represents. And that B is bait. And bait means house, but your original fitra house is this planet Earth, its creation. In fact, we call the other planets houses when the moon is in the 7th house. That's astrology language, right? So Arab and Arabiya represents insight into the movement and evolution of created matter. So anybody who struggles to come into that level of scientific investigation and insight is speaking the language of the Quran and the language of all prophets. You thought you had to be astute at Arabic in order to understand the Quran. No, all you have to know is what that letter means in the fitrah, beginning with your own body, and then study that part of the body, or study that thing in the environment, or study that thing as an abstract idea. That's what Nunetics is here to instruct you in. So you can go on speaking colloquial Arabic and trying to read the newspaper or trying to speak to the people at the airport we don't even go that far. We're learning Arabic so we can speak to the Arab dude in the bodega. He's in our neighborhood and we see a need to learn his language to communicate with him. He should be trying to learn our language. But you have stylized and idolized these people and this language so long and so hard, thinking that they are the ideal Muslims in the world, that even though they're doing some nefarious things in the back room of that bodega with some of your daughters and granddaughters, you still see them as long as they play the Quran in the background when you come in the store. They could be selling ham hocks, it doesn't matter. As long as they got the Quran playing in the background, and as long as they greet you with a smile. Assalamu alaikum akhi, alhamdulillah, kayfalak. We like to just keep going toe to toe with them to let them know we know this thing, man. We Muslims too. We know this thing. That's why you have to speak to the genes of the African American, because speaking to his conscious mind is not working. So says Imam Warathuddin Muhammad. So it has become imperative among us and upon us to examine the methods by which the subconscious mind accepts information in a way that will allow for its freedom and evolution. When the Quran speaks about freeing the slave, it's talking about freeing your emotionality to operate as the wife of your intellect and your intellectual pursuits. And the way to speed up that progress is to have your pineal gland activated. And probably nobody in this call knows what I'm talking about. The pineal gland is the 4th element operating in the human brain. Allah says in another part of the Quran that He has created many things in 4s upon 4s. We know there's a north, south, east, west, up, down, left, right. You can't escape the 4s. The major Sahaba of Muhammad the Prophet are given to us in 4. The winds are given to us as the 4 winds. And there are so many 4s. You have 4 letters attached to your very DNA construct. CTAG. You can't escape the fours. But have you ever sat down to think about why Allah created these fours and what they all have in common? You haven't done it. If you build a table or a chair on 2 legs, it's not going to work well for you. If you build it on 3, you'll have a 3-legged stool, but it's still not as sturdy as a 4-legged stool. So 4 obviously represents stability, balance. We have to refeed these concepts so that they might become attached in the subconscious regions of our minds. And that happens through the constant repetition of these concepts, through reading about them, analyzing them, studying them, listening back to them. That's what makes these replays so vitally important. You heard it once, don't think that you got it. Listen to it over and over again. That's how I learned Imam W.D. Muhammad's language. I used to memorize his early lectures. I thought it was necessary. Anything that you repeat over and over again, what's allowing for that repetition, listen good, is the fact that the instinctive brain is in control of the repetition. And whatever effect the repetition is going to have on you, if you just continue to repeat and repeat and repeat, that activity is going to naturally allow for the surging upwards of that instinctive drive to then develop into the emotional drive. It's going to evolve from instinctive operations to become sensitized or emotional operations in you. In other words, there's no clear delineation necessarily between the instinctive motivation in you and the emotional and memory motivation in you. But you have to be one who repeats. If you just do it once, twice, 3 times a lady, it ain't going to happen. You're doing what the average reptile. See, reptile, you can hear the word rep in a reptile and in rep, eat, or repeat. Because a reptile repeats things over and over again, just like your instincts do. You eat over and over again. You sleep, that's instinctive, over and over again. Whatever you do over and over again for survival's sake, that's a part of your reptilian brain's activity. But the more you do things over and over again, you're going to eventually come into new sights and new insights and new ways of doing those things. I believe there's a hadith that speaks about the person coming back from the Eid celebration and was instructed to go one particular way, but not to come back through that same course. Come back a different way. See, what that is doing is it's breaking up the tendency in the brain to do things repeatedly the same way over and over again. And therefore, you will remain relegated to the reptilian brain in doing so. If you come back a different way, you're going to see different sights. You're going to hear different sounds. You're going to meet different people. And your emotional brain is going to be activated. So much science, even in the hadiths, but the way they've given them to us, they've made them fit for nothing but the trash can on the most part. And that's unfortunate. My position, no, I don't throw them all away, but I don't accept them on the same level of guidance that I accept the Quran. I value them for what I need to investigate them for. Many sincere people laid the platform for these hadiths. Not necessarily the ones whose names are attached to them. I'm talking about the purveyors of hadith over history believed they were doing the correct thing. The incorrect thing was to equate the hadiths with the Quran and say that the two are actually one. That's where the big mistake was made. Because all of this information that we repeat to ourselves over and over again are going into our subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind, take note of this, doesn't know anything about lies or lying. The subconscious mind, if you tell it something repeatedly, over and over again, the subconscious mind is going to accept it as the truth. It's the conscious mind, the neocortex brain, that lies. And that's why Allah says that He will grab that sucker, excuse the expression, by the forelock. And He calls it a lying, sinful forelock. Where's the forelock? That's your neocortex brain, called nasiya in the Quran. Your neocortex, the subconscious mind, is the reservoir of information that the mind remembered because you kept repeating this to it over and over again. And I repeat, whatever you repeat over and over again becomes gospel in the brain, in the subconscious region of the brain. So African Americans have become a decimated people on the most part because of the regularity of common language themes being visited upon our subconscious brains through the conscious mind, but ending up in the subconscious part of the brain. You ain't worth nothing. You niggers. You'll never be anything. And believe it or not, the first three things I just said, we've heard from our parents. I'm not talking about the so-called white man. Our parents have told us that, little nigger, you just like your father. You ain't never gonna be nothing. You little crumb snatcher. Yeah, call you all kinds of little nappy-headed son of a whatever. You know, made us not proud of our hair texture and our skin color and so forth and so on. Isn't that something? I'm not even talking about the damage from the superculture. I'm talking about the in-house damage that happened to us as a result of us believing the hype and the lies that were told to us by the superculture. So in order for us to get out of this, we have to redesign language. And we have to situate ourselves to be able to repeat that language over and over again to ourselves, beginning with our family members. You have to put these proclamations, these sayings, these mantras, you have to write them out and put them on your wall. Your children don't want to hear you talking to them. It's your house. Put words make people on your living room wall. Put man means mine on the wall in the hallway towards their bedroom. Just put it there. You don't have to say anything about it. It's going to seep into their subconscious by virtue of the fact that they have to look at it every day. And even when their conscious mind is no longer aware of its importance, it will still be working on the subconscious part of the mind. Imam Muhammad said that if you establish language correctly in your generation and just keep repeating these things, he said even when you have babies, they will come out with a predisposition towards that language. Isn't that beautiful? A predisposition towards goodness and intelligence. You can inherit intelligence, but you can't inherit evil. Isn't that wonderful? The child of Adolf, whoever, or of Blavatsky, whatever, or whatever you think is evil personified, their child is still born as pure and untainted as any other baby. The field of criminology established that about 3 decades ago, that no baby is born criminal, or in religion, we would say that no baby is actually born in sin. Sin is a condition that they have to be exposed to. So look at that. But along with that is this logic that's being established by Imam Muhammad, that not only are you born pure and untainted, you are born with a genetic disposition which will allow for the evolution of goodness in you to be passed down generation to generation to generation to generation. That's wonderful. So I'm going to add this last part and then we're going to conclude. It is an absolute necessity which obligates us that we examine the methods by which the subconscious mind accepts information and do so, I repeat, in a way that will allow for the freedom and evolution from tyranny and oppression that this world of social manipulators have enslaved us to, and they've enslaved us on the subconscious level, not on the conscious level. Consciously, black and proud, Black Lives Matter. That's the conscious mind speaking, the neocortex, the one that can lie and deceive. But subconsciously, we still ain't worthy. You know how we know that? Look at the activities taking place right now in these African American communities that are escalating in crime. You would think that with all of this attention to Black Lives Matter and Black and Proud, that especially the younger folks, you would think they'd be so in touch with that message that they would self-regulate their communities and rid themselves of crime. But crime has increased as soon as you say defund this group or keep these other ones out of our business or whatever. And we've actually now come to a point where rioting and looting in our own community is considered to be a good thing. Like it's not really crime. It's just black people expressing themselves. And this is other folks speaking to you and through you for their purposes. And it's gotten to the point where the police are saying we're not going to risk our lives and not coming back home to our families because these people want to riot and act up and all of that. I know there's a history of us abusing this community for sure. But again, whatever issues we have to address as an ethnic group of community operating upon a group soul, as Imam Muhammad called it, a group soul. The group soul is being oppressed by us. Individual souls are being oppressed by the environment. The group soul, that challenge for moving forward and advancing ourselves into and up to excellence, that challenge is on us alone, because group souls only develop based on your proximity to people in your same ethnic circumstances. So how can the white man be responsible for your effed up group soul? Doesn't make sense. You're responsible for that. What you taught yourself, what you taught your children, what you repeated to yourself over and over again, your lack of initiative. Every other word is a mother other and a B and H and all of that. And we're carrying that with us. You're in school, in the schoolyard, in the lunchroom, and you're still using that language. There was a time when a teacher would have slapped you across your lips. My mother slapped me once when I was young because I said the word darn in front of her. I said, I didn't say the other words. She said, I don't want you saying any of these words. You ever hear me say it, trying to communicate with you? You don't need it. I said, darn. And she slapped me because she knew what the next step was going to be in my language evolution or devolution. Never used that language in front of my parents. And when I would use it on the street, I'd feel a certain way, a certain tingling in my spine when I'd say a cuss word or something, even if it was among friends of mine who I knew that was their common language. It felt strange coming out of me. Now, I'm not speaking for all of you. You do what you want. You've done what you wanted to, and you'll continue to do what you want. I'm just telling you what my personal experience is, so you'll understand what my position is on some of these things. And probably why Allah chose me to bring you these messages like I'm bringing them to you. My soul has been sensitized to language. So again, in order to rise up out of this malaise and to claim our true inheritance in terms of leadership through language, we have to pay conscious attention to the purification of our word environment. Like I said, put it on your wall. There's a prophet in the Quran that was told to fast from speaking, not from food and drink, for so many days, 3 days. What's wrong with that ritual? You want to follow rituals? That's a good one right there. Why don't we decide as an ethnic group, as a group soul community, to fast from cuss words for 3 days? Over the Christmas weekend, well, yeah, whatever, We have to become innovative to that level based on Quranic wisdom. And don't think Quranic wisdom is only for people who have taken Shahadatain. Quranic wisdom is for anybody who investigates the Quran for purposes of advancing their human life towards excellence. It can be your Christian grandmother, doesn't matter. It could be your atheist uncle. If he starts to read the Quran and it's attracting him, you start reading it. Hey, uncle, let me just read. What do you think about this passage right here? You claim to be a scientist. What do you think about? And read him some science from the Quran. People in trouble with their relationships, read what Allah say in the Quran. Don't read them those fabrications. Beat her lightly and all that foolishness. That's not in there. Don't read that. That's the manipulator speaking through the Quran to you to condition your subconscious mind for inferiority forever in this world as a Muslim, as a person of faith. Don't believe that. So keep coming. Join this university online learning course. I'm going to tell you how to do that in just a moment. If you're not an official member, I've opened up a certain number of classes for the public. And anyone who wants a copy of this, a clear copy, they can do the same. Just email me or text me and say, I'd like a copy, and then give me your email address. It's better if you email me. I can email it right back to you. All right. This recording will be ready tonight. And I may put it up on YouTube, but doesn't matter. If you get it from me, you get it from YouTube, at least you got it. And when you go to my YouTube videos, press the like and the share and all of that, and comment, say something. But especially like, because the algorithm helps the promotion of this message that you're hearing tonight. All right. And we have other people on that YouTube channel, Imam Benjamin Bilal on YouTube. Just Google that, Imam Benjamin Bilal, and you're going to hear from some of the other learners. And in the near future, you're going to hear from more and more of our learners and instructors and senior instructors. They're making healthy progress now. All right. Michael, are you available?
Yes, sir. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbana atina fi dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar. Our Lord, grant us the excellence of this life and the excellence of the latter, and save us from the fires of our own passions, unchecked by good sense. O Allah, you originated us as human beings, and so we look to you to guide us in the way that we should be navigated through the social challenges that we have. Expand our heart and our mind to be better husbands, wives, sons, daughters, children, brothers, and sisters to one another. We ask that you show your mercy and your civilizing assistance to those who are suffering infirmities of whatever nature, body, mind, spirit, soul. O Allah, guide us among those you've guided aright. Save us among those you save. Bless us in whatever you give us, and deliver us from the harm that you judge. You judge, and none can judge against you, and those whom you befriend are not disgraced. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, and thank you for that. And thank you once again to Instructor Hassan Abdullah, who opened up this program and did an excellent job. And I wanted him to do so as a representative of the elders in this group, this Nunetics group. I think he's about 82 now. Yeah, but you can hear the spirit, the fire in that man's spirit. And so that's proof positive of how this new language invigorates the soul. And it doesn't matter what your age is. You're going to be remade correctly by studying the Nunetics method for identifying Quranic words. It's really that simple. And he's not the only one. And we have some that are 15 years old who have that same spirit. And we have all of the ones in between. These are wonderful people. This is a wonderful phenomenon that's taking place among us. And none of us as individuals are to be pointed to for the reason for its success. It is all due to Allah's will. So keep that in mind. And Allah gets the praise. As we mentioned at the beginning of this program, all of the hamd is the property of Allah, the source creator. Thank you once again. Salamun alaikum.
Benjamin.
Yes, sir.
This is Bilal Yassin Elamine. May I make a suggestion before we go?
Go right ahead, sir, please.
The offer you just made to the imams, perhaps we can make that offer to anyone. And because there may be people who are not imams who will take that offer up and who may even be more deserving, but who can't afford it. And then you let us know what you need to make that happen. See, if you waive the tuition for anyone who joins by December 31st, we will help you make up what you would have gotten based on what you need to make that happen for anyone. You see what I'm saying?
I do, and I'm going to put you in charge of that. I like the way that settles on my soul, so let's make that happen. Anybody who's still listening, take that message back with you that between now and December 31st, the doors are open for anyone who wants to officially join. However, you still have to email me. You still have to text me. You still have to call me. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and I want to know who the Imam is where you are. But I agree with our senior instructor, Bilal Yassin Al-Amin, always dropping wisdom on us. So let it be that. Let's change trajectory. It's not just for imams. It's for it. And I'll make this announcement again, Bilal, you remind me to make it through email and also at the next few classes that we give. It'll be anyone who's interested who might not be able to. If you can't afford it, then pay for it. If you can't afford it, then that's fine. Many of you have been showing that desire and have been actually consistent in these last few months that you've been able to come with us and be with us for free. That's fine. Just let me know who you are so I can put you on the official register and we'll go from there. Thank you to our senior instructor who's inspired with those words. Thank you for the suggestion. All right.
The believers don't catch the slack. We might get a diamond out the rough, but the believers got the slack. We got it.
All right.
Nice, brother.
Yeah, we know how this goes.
Praise the Lord.
All right. So I'll see you guys on the other end, inshallah. We'll probably have a class in between now and next Sunday and take that message back and let's make that happen. I should be getting calls tonight. Just don't call me past midnight. Assalamu alaikum.